Okay, sorry everyone. I'm tweeting out the stream. I'm so sorry, everyone. Please enjoy. I don't know. Enjoy that again. Okay, everyone. False alarm. We are all good right here on the Broad Street Hockey YouTube channel live. Figure this afternoon, make it kind of a chill Friday afternoon, but also like a little intense, a little ramp up the volume a little bit. We recently had an article on broadstreethockey.com going over the power play effects of new Flyers assistant coach hired official yesterday, I believe. Jaroslav Svejkovsky, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Hopefully I am. New Flyers head coach brought in from the Canucks, Rick Tocchet's old stomping grounds, brought him over just from last season. Figured it'd be important to dive deep into what his power play looked like with the Canucks last season, and how, if he brings up the same tactics or brings up the same effect, like general effect, what it would look like. So with that being said, and I think it's more important also to do a brief overview of like Svejkovsky's general career, because it's important to know his background of where he came from and how that might affect him joining the Flyers. So he was with the WHL's Vancouver Giants as an assistant coach, eventually moved into a skills coach position as he was going with under 15s in the Delta area, 15, 16, kind of, yeah. Then he would go to the AHL's Abbotsford Canucks as a skills coach for just one season in 21-22. Vancouver Canucks skills coach for 2 seasons, and then he's brought up, quickly promoted to the assistant coach role in 24-25 just last season, and then of course joining Tocchet on the Flyers staff. It overall, the initial impression is Tocchet is bringing someone familiar and is able to lean on a little bit. Tocchet expressively said, I think it was in his press conference or a little bit earlier, or in another interview, maybe with Bertitas, but he acknowledges that he doesn't know everything. He knows that, if I could lean on someone for expertise, if I can acknowledge that they're a specialist at this one thing, I don't know everything about a power play. I don't know, like, even though he ran the Penguins power play during their cup runs, still he can lean on him for maybe some support, acknowledge that there's a little bit of a need to address a hole that he has. So it's yeah. So basically it's nice to see. And I think Svejkovsky could do that a little bit, especially coming from the skills coach point of view. So let's not waste anyone's time here. Let's dive deep into how kind of what we went over on that article. So overall, let's look at the Canucks power play last season. So Canucks were 15th in success rate. Of course, that would be a miracle on the Flyers right now. But let's dive a little bit deeper into just the underlyings of that power play. Let's just get this pulled up here. Hopefully everyone can see that. So this was the power play results from before Svejkovsky joined. So more context of similar players. So it's still led by Miller, Pettersson. This is during the Canucks' crazy season of winning the Pacific Division, getting established of like, oh, we can maybe compete here, play with a little bit more pace, get scoring more like a more scoring touch, just like that crazy season where they were a game away from getting into the Western Conference Final because they were up against 7 against the Oilers famously. So a very successful season that a lot of people, I think now looking back on it, see it as a potential paper tiger situation of like, oh, well, like they weren't totally deserving of the division win. They weren't totally deserving of all the rage and like the success rate and everything like that. Yeah, like I think it's an interesting thing also just to see this weight and I don't know how to put it, but like they didn't lean on the power play for that division win. So you just see here goals for per 60, 8.12. That was 10th in the NHL. Shots for per 60, 56.14, 15th. Fenwick, so unblocked shot attempts, 82.5. That was 9th. Corsi 4, so that's raw shot attempts, 10th with that amount. Expected goals per 60, 9th. So they were in the top 10, like in most of these categories or so on. But they weren't a team that was like the Oilers in the past or the Rangers in the past that solely dependent on their power play. That is like you could poke a team, you could tell more that a team is kind of fake driving these results if they were lenient on a power play. Like if they're just like, oh, they're shooting 30% on the power play, oh, then like, yeah, that's not sustainable. They're even if they do that for a full season, even if they do that, it's not gonna continue success. So with all this in mind, how successful that power play like was, but it wasn't dependent on. Let's look at the following year. So this was under a different coach, 2024-25. Jaroslav comes in under Tocchet. So Tocchet was still running this team, of course. And then Svejkovsky comes in, was a skills coach during this year, but now he is the assistant coach running the power play. So the Canucks power play this season had a 22.5% success rate, which ranked 15th in the entire NHL. It was an entire 7.5% better than what the Flyers were able to do last season. So basically, if they even had that success rate, barring all these underlyings, like don't even look at them. Trying to hide them. Don't even look at them right now. But because if like Flyers just had that amount of success, we'd be talking about potentially a playoff team, maybe like and a little bit of goaltending. So it's just like that slight increase, just up to 15th from 30th, I believe the Flyers finished. Would be obviously a lot of success. This point has been drilled down to death. It's June 6th. What am I talking about? Okay. Underlines 24-25. Goals for per 60, 7.82, 17th in the NHL. So around, I think it was slightly, yeah, a decrease from the previous year. But then we get into the muck. The shots for per 60 rate, 44.83, 29th. Fenwick on block shot attempts, 70.84. Corsi, 95.56 per hour, 27th. Expected goals for percentage, or not percentage, per 60, 7.92, 23rd. That is a big drop compared to the previous season, unfortunately. But it's how do you point this out? Like it's terrible, but also the Flyers finished in all these categories, quite obviously, because we're talking about the Flyers power play here. They finished under in every single category. They've had a worse number than the Canucks, even at like 29th in the NHL. Yeah, I think the Flyers finished 32nd, like dead last in shots for per 60. So anything would be an increase or an improvement, but it's also like it's not generally what you want to see. If you just look at these raw numbers. Later, we'll get into a lot more of like why these raw numbers could have existed. But the most important thing, and context is important because of how trash the Canucks season was. Obviously, you had the Miller Pettersson drama hanging, like hovering like a dark cloud over the entire season. That's not good. It's oversimplifying it because I think even if you speak to a casual Canucks fan, there's probably so much lore and like behind the scenes mystery that you don't know about, and like just background information where stuff could just be cursed and be like it'd be totally different out of Vancouver. Everyone kind of improves out when they leave Vancouver. But context is important of a general players on the ice. So the 2023-24 season, why it was a pretty successful was health wasn't an issue. Or lack of health wasn't an issue. It was a season that a lot of players stayed relatively healthy. So it's fine. And then, but unfortunately, the last season, so it's 24-25. I'm not going to be blaming the entirety of this underperformance on this, but let me see here. Pettersson played just 64 games. Quinn Hughes played just 68. And then even before Miller was traded, of course, the whole Miller Pettersson drama, he played just 40 of the 51 games. He had to take a month leave of absence, healthy leave of absence. And that was even before the Miller trade. So this is the full season. This includes just the 40 games of Miller and after Miller. It includes Pettersson playing just 68 games, 64, includes Hughes just playing 68. I think the whole story, like the whole time on ice leaders was still Hughes led it, but it was the power play was run by players like Besser, Connor Garland, Jake DeBrusk. Like that's a level of player that isn't too far off from what the Flyers have. And generally it's a talent level where again, it's not too far away, but it's also like they're not as dynamic as completely dominating a power play like I think Quinn Hughes is. So, but let's just see kind of segment and chop off that bit of before Miller, and then let's look at after Miller. So January 31st, Miller was traded. It was how many games? I believe 32 games after Miller was traded. Let's look at that success rate. Of course, it's a smaller sample, but from January 31st, how did the Canucks power play stack up against the league in these underlines? I don't have the success rate, but I think when you look at such like a small sample, it's more important with like general rates than if the power play went like 2 for 16 or whatever. So let's kind of just dive into this. So this is from January 31st to whenever the Canucks season ended, April 17th-ish. So after that trade, Canucks power play hovered around the same goals for percentage, decreased a little bit, so 19th in the NHL to 7.72. Shots for per 60 went up to 46.72. Fenwick went up from 70 to 76.78 to 16th in the NHL, so dead in the middle. Corsi 4 went from 95.56 over the full season to 102.37, so 15th. So without this chunk, then the Canucks overall power play wouldn't even be that good. And then expected goals for 8.55 with 18th in the NHL. So this late season push, not even push really, but like this late season surge of decent power play success, and maybe not the results, but the process improved after the Miller trade, and maybe a lighter locker room. We could say like, again, it's probably, we don't want to take that leap and assume how things panned out, but you could just take a look at this and be like, oh, well, like for those 32 games, again, not the biggest sample size, but pretty good. Like if a team was 32 games of this season, you could probably say like where they are roughly, how their season is going to end. So this is after the Miller trade. So we're not sure if like anything tactical changed or if the Canucks were just like clearly just shooting the puck way more because Miller wasn't like hogging the puck and playing with like we don't watch this team. That's the issue of like we have these numbers, we can watch some video, but overall it's like unless we're really trying to get super deep into it, it's a little bit harder to tell. So again, the main point of like all these stats is they are still better than what the Flyers had. No matter what, it's an improvement. If the Flyers had this, we'd be talking about Mishkov 30 goals or something like that. So that was the Canucks power play last season under Svejkovsky. Not great overall. After Canucks trade, middle-ish of the pack, lower half, below average maybe is a clear term we can use. So how does this affect the Flyers? Of course. How does this, oh God, I'm big. How does this whole thing affect the Flyers? What does this mean? Because like we know that Svejkovsky, the power play didn't go perfect. It didn't go well. But how can this move into what the Flyers have? My approach to thinking about this is I wonder if, well, first my question to myself was, Jacob, are you ready? I just see you joined. Okay. What's up?
Hello. Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing today?
We're talking power play. I don't know if you watch the Canucks a lot.
I did actually more than I think a lot of people would, like on the West Coast.
Yeah. Did you notice anything about the power play specifically?
Well, the thing that always struck me about the Canucks is like they seem like they always had a player for the role. I really love Dakota Joshua as like a bang net front guy. I like Besser as a trigger man a lot. I like Pettersson, working it around and obviously with his own shooting capability when he's right. And then, Quinn Hughes is fucking insane.
God.
Right? So like I don't know. I think I could run a power play with those guys. Like it's one of those situations that like you are not going to get that here. Probably ever. Like it's really hard to build a power play with that many talented guys on your PP1. And that's not even, going into like the Hoaglanders of the world and stuff like that, who can help supplant it. I think you have a lot of moves you can make there. So I'm not exactly sure about the whole idea that bringing him over will sort of mirror what he did in Vancouver with the Flyers. Because
we're gonna get to that. Don't you worry.
It's just not.
I have the whole thing planned. I have topics to talk about.
God.
And graphics to show.
Can you tell me how to say his name? I have an idea.
I have no idea.
Svech.
I meant to go to Elite Prospects and look at him. Because they should have the pronunciation guide, right?
I should have done this before I entered because I was waiting.
Oh no, it's not available.
Oh
wow!
I have to listen to someone.
Svejkovsky.
That's what I was going to say, Svejkovsky or something like that. That's I had a little bit of an accent on it, so it made more sense to me in my head.
Yeah, no, exactly. So let me share my screen because I'm on Hockey Viz.
Okay.
I think this will work. Kind of. Yeah. Okay. So. Oh God. Okay. So this is the Canucks Power Play Network provided by lovely Micah Blake McCurdy. So the whole like Miller's small because obviously it's traded, but like it's basically these
Connor
five
Garland
players. Yeah. Besser, Hughes, DeBrusque, Garland, Pettersson.
Yeah.
And then you have like Lecker-Mackey playing a little bit, Joshua. Yeah. It was a clearly first unit top heavy. Like they would probably play a minute 30 at least on the power play. Like,
they would. I don't remember them ever really playing a second power play unit for too long. That wasn't just one of those like you put out the line that you want to set up for when you're not on the power play anymore.
Like the only reason these players are even on here is just injury replacements because when Pettersson was out, probably Suter or Joshua or Cheeto was there.
Well, Cheadle, also joined late too.
Joined later. And then when Hughes was out, Hronek, I think, was on the top power play unit, so he's there. So there's a clear division, like a network. I don't know if that's something I was gonna show later. But yeah, so my whole thing of how this translates to the Flyers was clear when I did see. So I took a separate image, but when I did see the heat map of the power play last season. So this is the overall Canucks power play. Instantly seeing where they shoot the puck from above league average, who do you think of?
Where they shoot the puck from, like that spot above league, probably from the point, I would imagine.
Yeah. So it's Quinn Hughes.
It's
so
Quinn
like
Hughes,
immediately that's like, oh, that's where Quinn Hughes sets up.
Yeah.
Like, and then is the whole tactic was probably, and I wrote this in the article, that like it was probably shoot from the point and then hope for a rebound. And they got a decent amount of rebounds because you see that little orange blob in front of the net. So, and that might have been Joshua, like DeBrusque.
Garland's pretty good backdoor as well.
Yeah.
He can probably circle around to the front. Sneak his way in there.
So it was still below league average in quality just because of how much they shot from the point and these low danger efforts. But so obviously that doesn't sound good when it's like the guy that had this going on, you bring up like you get like Hacksaw PTSD of like how he ran his entire offense.
Yeah.
So that's not great. So you don't want that to happen. But it's like obviously if I had Quinn Hughes on my team, I'd be like, yeah, you fucking do everything.
Shoot
obviously.
The puck.
Yeah.
Like, you can do anything with the puck, honestly.
Yeah. So
whatever. So
like that is where my mind went, was because it's so talent dependent. That's okay. Well, then if even if the trait of Svejkovsky reliant on the most skilled player on that power play translates, so that when he comes to Philadelphia, I think like immediately you start to think of like, oh well, the main guy is obviously going to be Michkov. Like that's your quarterback, so to speak, your centerpiece of the web on the power play. So I took a look at the Flyers power play with Michkov on the ice. Overall, it was still worse than Canucks total impact on the power play last year. You see it was a -9% below league total XG. Then we see with Michkov 224 minutes, it was -11% compared to league average. So, but the main thing that you obviously see here is a lot of mid-range and from the slot shots. Like, I think a lot of that was, I'm trying to remember specifically. That whole season was like a mind-numbing experience. But like, was it Brink? Like Brink for a little bit in the slot?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was Brink there. Yeah, Konechny would circle over there like a little bit sometimes. But again, it's hard to really talk about trends with the power play because they never seemed like they had anything that they wanted to do.
That's a good idea because I didn't include this in my article. Also, the bring up the power play network for the Flyers last year. So that'll probably be good context.
Yeah. You look at the Vancouver power play offense too. You see that like the shots on the left side that they take on the left half wall. Like there's just so many unique little traits about it that I don't know how necessarily repetitive it can be. Yeah. And it's not even a bad thing. It's just because like I think they're just in a very unique situation in the league at that point. And I think any power play coach probably would have coached it in a similar way to just have the two big shots sort of operate around Quinn Hughes and let him sort of make the choice as to which way he wants to go, depending on what the situation kind of calls for, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's difficult to like replicate at all. So this is the Flyers power play network. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a lot of guys.
It's like everyone played with each other at some point. You had like Frost is one of the bigger ones. That's crazy.
Yeah, Frost was on the power play for a very long
so
time.
long. Yeah.
I mean, he was the only creative center of
So obviously Michkov Konecny is the main force, and then Drysdale I think was up there in ice time as well. I think he led the Flyers in ice time, power play ice time at one point. Like,
yeah,
very
that would make sense.
Tippett, Couturier, Brink, Forster, Cates was there. A whole slew of. Remember when Zamula was on the power play? Like, it's
it worked. He scored a couple goals. It worked for
goals.
about 3 days.
Yeah. So it's yeah. So like it's clearly an unorganized mess. So the one thing is like maybe he'll bring in more of a consistent unit and just like go with that no matter what. Again, the Canucks was hard because it was like beyond that was Joshua and the Karamaki, unproven rookie. You have Hoglander that the Tocchet didn't like.
Yeah.
You had a clear top 5 offensive drivers. So it was much more clear than the Flyers anyways. But let me bring up the Michkov thing again. So if Quinn Hughes is your guy on the power play and you saw that he basically operated the whole thing for the Canucks, if that switches to Michkov, in my mind, it's immediately just so much more dangerous because of his general positioning, but then also the ability to like thread passes across the ice better than Hughes, like not better than Hughes, but like in a more consistent manner because of just where he's starting to play from. And we saw here just like there was no net front guy, and it was a different point. But I think as long as you try to get that net front guy, as you try to get more dangerous points, then like we've already seen Michkov have success in the higher danger areas than when the Canucks power play last season. So I think translating that, if they become dependent on one sole generator of power on the power play, then I think it's a much more easier to think of like this can be a decent move going forward, and he could have a positive effect on the power play overall.
I did want to ask, you had the numbers up with Drysdale. I wanted to ask, do you think that the new coaching staff, well, first off, will they share that same opinion that Drysdale is going to be the one over even a York? I mean, I think he probably comes back into the fold. I know with John Tortorella didn't necessarily love him personally. And I think that may have created a bit of friction there, but I think he'll come back in the fold. But mostly I'm talking about Travis Sanheim. Would Sanheim be a better fit for one? And then also, are you putting Jamie Drysdale on the power play? Because if he's not on the power play, he's kind of just not a useful NHL player.
Yeah, he had a not a great time on the power play.
Yeah,
last season. So yeah, I think
nobody did, to be fair.
No, exactly. I think Tocchet's quotes about Sanheim of how much he loves him might make me just lean towards him having more of a presence in all situations, and that includes the power play. It would be nice to see, but it also depends on like, do you want to keep Sanheim fresh for all the other minutes, and then like in that power play moment, you could have Drysdale, or you could have even Andre. Like if he makes the team, like you could be a little bit more creative with that. But yeah, I think it really all depends. I would like Sanheim, I think, on the power play to start. Like I think it just makes more sense to see him there, and like especially as because so many times when the Flyers would hit the power play, they just wouldn't be able to enter the zone at all. And then Sanheim helps out with that so much.
The thing I like better than Drysdale. The thing I like about Sanheim, particularly on the power play, and I'd like to see him do more of, I think last year we did see him do a bit more of it, is he is so big, and he does have this frame that guys don't want to necessarily get in front of. That you see Seth Jones making these big darting rushes, like not even end to end, but even just from the top of the point, like activating down the wings and trying to drive to the net front from the bottom of the circle across. That's what I think Sanheim's ultimate. Like, I don't want him sitting back there and taking point shots.
No.
You know?
No.
it would be very different than to what Quinn Hughes was doing in Vancouver. And to that same coin, maybe Drysdale is a bit more equipped to kind of walk the line, little turns here and there, get free and get a shot off from the point, more like akin to Gostisbehere back in the day or something like that. So I could see both of them. Like, I think they both have their merits. It's just whether or not Drysdale is actually like not an AHLer, essentially. Like, is he better than Emil Andre or not?
Yeah, that's your benchmark. That's what you have to do, because because it's, man, I don't want to hate on Drysdale too much, but it's like this season I think is even more important. Like the steps. This is just becoming Drysdale pod, but like the steps into him actualizing his talents. It's like, okay, first season is a write-off because like you were just getting here, whatever. This, like, last season, it was like play a season fully healthy. He didn't do that. I forget how many games he played. Was it like 60 something, 70
last season?
Yeah.
Let me see. I'll tell you in a second.
I
think it was 70. Yeah, 70,
exactly.
Yeah.
So better. The most games he played since 2021, 2022. So better. So that's like just be on the ice in general.
Yeah.
Take that next step. And then I think this season upcoming is like, okay, stay healthy, but also like help your team. Because like when he was on the ice, like he was disaster defensively.
Yeah.
He steadily improved like individually, but still the Flyers overall when he was on the ice
were not good. Yeah.
Were not good at all. On both ends. So like,
yeah,
I think if that's his next goal, I think just to keep helping his team, and then we could talk about like individual scoring, maybe like use more of his actual tool set, and that then he gets to like age 24, 25. Like we're talking about maybe him, like that's the big decision about whether or not he is the player that we all hoped for or not. But yeah, it's tricky for Drysdale specifically. But I think I still have hope that he could be a potential offensive weapon. But again, I think it's wait and see, specifically for him. Like I think he's one of the biggest what ifs.
I think you got to give both of them a chance at the top and just see. Yeah. I mean, ideally, you have two power play units that aren't horrible. Like if you were an NHL team, that's what you usually want, and you usually have two goaltenders who also are goaltenders. But we have seen that that's not necessarily achievable for this franchise at the moment. But it's just it's been a problem for so long that it feels almost like there's something in the organizational makeup that hasn't allowed the Flyers to acquire people who are that good on the power play, like guys who hypothetically should be good on the power play. Like Owen Tippett should be good on the power play, but for some reason he's just not. He had no power play goals last year.
Yeah.
Did you know that? He had 0.
Yeah.
When I looked at that, my mind was fucking blown. How is that even possible? Like he just has his two great assets are he's faster than damn near everyone else in the league, and he has a really good one-timer. He had 0 goals on the power play. I can't view that as just Owen Tippett's fault. If he had 3, then I'd be like, okay, you probably want more. 0?
Yeah.
That's like you get like Buddy Hield, and he doesn't have a 3-pointer for 15 games. It's like, what? How is that even possible? That's what you should be excelling at. And I'm still very, very skeptical that this franchise can actually build a power play, because I don't think I've seen it since I was in maybe elementary school. And I have graduated university in 2022. Like, since Joe Mullen left the team, I don't know if the power play's been legitimately good. Like, ever.
Yeah.
Like, it's been maybe mid once or twice. It hasn't been good ever. So that's what I'm struggling with the trying to project forward, because one, Svejkovsky doesn't seem necessarily like an elite power play mind out of the box, like somebody who's coveted. It's just bringing in the guy who was coaching with the guy who is now coaching your team, which is fine. I mean, it's not as the Canucks were a horrible hockey team, but they also weren't the most functional at the end there either. But regardless, it's hard for me to get into too many fairy tale like comeback, this team has a top 10 power play storylines, because I don't think you have to be so good to counteract whatever has been going on for the past 10 years that I don't know if he's going to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like his effect, and it honestly is just like, what is it? Just a talent level? Is it just a talent base? Like, because it's I think there's so many different factors that you have to ask like specifically about the power play, just because how do you rejuvenate that whole system? That, like, is it going to be Tocchet's effect on the power play? Is it going to be just general improvement? Just be average, and then we're going to be like going crazy because the Flyers are something like 5 for 10 in a stretch or whatever. I think it's going to be difficult to know exactly what's going on because of the difference in specific, not even just talent level, but specific tool sets that each team has. Like I looked, so I just brought up the Canucks little heat map from no, that's wrong. Where is it? So this is 23-24. So when they had a crazy good season, and
Yeah.
I went over the stats earlier and I have it in my article on Broad Street Hockey. Right, like and subscribe.
Yep.
$5 a month or whatever. To read that. So, and I put out the stats, and it was basically like they had a top 10, roughly top 10 in like goals for, shots for, expected goals, Corsi, Fenwick, like all those things. Roughly top 10. So not like they're not so dependent on their power play like an Oilers or Rangers in previous years. But this is what happened during that when they were just top 10. And underlying, they were incredibly like everything worked well. But when looking at this, it's basically the same tactic of Quinn Hughes has it, but they're just better at clearing spots in front of the ice. They're better, or sorry, in front of the net. They're just better at maneuvering around the ice. And then Quinn Hughes, most likely Quinn Hughes, because it's coming from the point, was deeper in the zone. So it was just generally less time for the goalie to react, more options to play off of. Again, a little bit more aggressive playing. But I think in general, it's just like we're talking about Quinn Hughes so much, so we should probably just look at last year what Quinn Hughes' effect was.
Yeah, well, it's really just him kind of maneuvering the puck in the certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily, that's why I can't even like, I don't think we've ever had a player on the Flyers who does it in the way that Quinn Hughes does, except for Shane Gostisbehere, maybe at his peak. But that's the sort of what the sort of elite skill level you're looking at, and the mindset. Like even here, why are the shots from the left half wall working? You know, like this is just it's just a guy who he's all over the place. And we're talking only about Quinn Hughes when at their peak, you know, JT Miller, Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, they're all elite goal scorers. They're all 40 goal potential at their peak
Mm-hmm.
of their powers. You know, so that's something where I think Quinn Hughes is just such an X factor that it's hard to really project anything onto it because he's just all over the place.
Yeah, like the Flyers don't have this, obviously. So that was my point of like looking at the Michkov thing. The Flyers don't have that, but it's not too like where they were able to get. How am I adding this? Boom, boom. It's not too dissimilar of like where they were able to get like a better success net front. If Michkov had any help with getting someone to the net, again, that's an effect of like maybe that's an effect that's
there's really nobody on the roster though who necessarily fits that role well.
No, exactly.
So you're looking at like Tyson Forrester maybe in the high slot, like rotating to the net front. I wanted to do an article on broadstreethockey.com, subscribe, about how you can work the power play around the strengths of the Flyers. And what I was kind of what I was kind of envisioning is just sort of pass and move with Mishkov like all over the ice. So where he sets up below the goal line and kind of work it around the outside until you get these sort of cuts back door with somebody in, like you're almost looking at a double tip where there's somebody in the slot, in the high slot, say Konechny, and then Forster cutting back door, and Mishkov's kind of making those incisive passes through the middle. That's really the only thing I can kind of envision that would be like Quinn Hughes, because they're just, and I think Mishkov also is just going to play more below the goal line than maybe, especially more than Quinn Hughes, but maybe the Canucks even did at all. I think he's just one of those guys who can operate from that position a bit better. But it's difficult to see what they're going to, like, I can't really even think of how they would run a power play because they don't have that. At the moment, I would say they don't have that elite point man who is an elite power play player and has those instincts. And I also don't think they have a net front guy who is capable of cleaning up the trash, which was the hallmark of the Hartnell, Simmons, I guess, JVR eras of guys just being there, as well as that. But what they do have is that, like, Voracek, Giroux, we're going to pass it cross ice, and we're going to be able to move the puck in spots that maybe other players won't be able to. That they may have in spades. But again, the one-timer threats, it should be Owen Tippett, but it just isn't. Like, it just isn't at the moment. And I don't know if that's going to change. But, you know, there's not a lot. There's not as many. I think what I come away with is there's not as many options on the Flyers power play as it currently sits. Great fucking hot take, Jacob, that there's not as many options on the Flyers power play than on the Canucks.
Isn't good. You know what name comes to mind when I think about how the Flyers could maybe operate a power play surrounded about Michkov? Again, this is obviously a player that is surrounded by much more talent, so it's different. But I think watching this team more, I think you could see the inkling of it, of him being maybe not the main power play driver, but he was very significant in getting the puck in the zone and then working along the half boards behind the net, scooping around potentially, and then making smart passes from the inside. And that's William Nylander. Like, immediately, where it's like, I think about him on the power play, on the Leafs power play, as more of a potential for Michkov of setting up from the half boards, but then also being a major threat to cut inside and shoot it himself. And then just looking at what, again, more charts. I'm sorry, folks, because stuff's just coming to my head. But
love charts.
I know. So this is the Leafs power play, and immediately when I was like, okay, well, like, the Leafs power play is lethal, obviously, like it's insane, one of the best in the league. But I was like, they have a net front guy in Nye, so I can't really talk about the Leafs power play with, like, that's the key difference between what they had and didn't have.
I always like OEL at the point too. I've always had even in his worst moments when he had that really real anchor of a contract, ironically, in Vancouver, I did like OEL as sort of a guy who operates up top, not like Hughes, but he is a smart player offensively. He has the instincts to do it. And as we said, Nye's in front is a bull. He's an and he's very skilled. Matthews is his own unique threat. Marner is his own unique threat.
I mean, Tavares is the
Tavares
forever.
Yeah, Tavares, he can still do it now. I think Nye's just, like, better, which, I mean, Tavares, I think Tavares is just a better version of what James Van Riemsdyk could have been in every facet, basically. He's just a better hockey player. So, John Tavares, like, isn't even mentioned in that group anymore. He's still probably going to be. I assume he's going to stay, even though I put it in my article that the Flyers could sign him. But the options that the Leafs have, again, they're so abundant.
I was trying to be smart and be like, oh, well, before Nyes came, who was net front? I was like, oh yeah, obvious fucking Tavares.
Like, JT.
Look at the thing I have on my screen. I was like, yeah,
He was so good.
that's a fucking power play, and
that is a black hole.
22-23. So before Nyes played, and I was like, oh, let me see this. But I was like, yeah, that's Tavares. That's all Tavares and Matthews, and then Nylander making and Marner making the plays.
JT was a demon, especially 22-23. I think like those years where he was just after the initially signing the contract, he was a lock for 30, 35.
Yeah. So we can't really look, but like Nylander comes into my head as a power play threat of like, Marner and Matthews was obviously a big driver, but I think Nylander on the power play when he was at his best, that's what I envision Michkov doing and be able to do consistently. Along the half boards, making plays from there, but being a major shooting threat. And
he's really not a bad comp in general, honestly.
No, like
I think he's got a bit better of a skating tool off.
Nylander's a better skater than Michkov.
Yeah, off rip, but ahead. Like the other stuff, I think that Michkov is just as good at, and I think he can also bring like a game to game sort of intensity that Nylander has consistently lacked over his time in the NHL, especially.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like Mr. Twitchler of the chat just I keep saying Twitchler, but Twister in the chat just said like the Flyers aren't so bereft of talent that they should be at the bottom of the league on the power play.
Correct. The Sharks were in the middle of the pack. So, the Sharks last year were in the middle of the pack, or the year before that. I don't remember which one, but either of those teams.
I think the Blackhawks were in the middle of the pack.
The Blackhawks
like
this
Red
year
Wings
were in
at
the
the
middle
top.
of the pack.
Like
like
that whole Red Wings stretch. They're similar talent of the Red Wings.
Oh, like, I think honestly the Flyers are better.
Yeah,
like the Red Wings are not. I mean, unless you still have your Patrick Kane jersey on, like you really think that's the big difference maker. But like, I mean, they are experienced. Like there are experienced guys there, like maybe who have seen a good power play before. The Flyers have never had that, like as far back as you can go. So maybe that's it. They just don't know what the fuck to do.
Let me show you tape of 1999 Red Wings. Yeah, man. So with Svejkovsky coming in, just looking at his effect on the Canucks power play, I don't know if it was a very strong effect. I think my takeaway after going through all of this was like my major takeaway with going through all of this was like there are reasons, but it's so similar to what the Canucks were doing previously. It just didn't work. That I don't know what specifically Svejkovsky, his effect on the power play is. It's a shitty thing to just be like, I don't know, but it was one single year and like the year where everything fell apart for Vancouver. So like, I don't know what you could take from that other than.
And yeah, if you're talking about Tocchet, like it's obviously, I think it's understandable to have some questions about Tocchet and his role and how that dressing room completely fell apart at the end there. I don't think you can question the power play coach, Like, once things fell apart, he's kind of up a creek without a paddle. Like, he's kind of shit out of luck. I mean, what is he going to end up doing if everyone just hates each other and Miller doesn't want to pass the puck to Pettersson across ice? It's like, well, kind of sucks. I mean, it's not ideal for him. I don't think it's ideal for the Flyers either, but I don't think it's anything I can get necessarily mad at. So again, it's the same with the Tocchet stuff. I really don't know how angry I can get at it.
No, exactly. So
I'm not surprised.
You brought up Tocchet specifically, and I was like, oh yeah, obviously he was the fucking power play coach in Pittsburgh. Let me look at his effect on the Pittsburgh power play.
Again, pretty good players over there.
Sidney Crosby. No, I know.
Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, Phil Casson.
No, I know. So, but you generally take players out of it, and again, you're trying to think of what. Sorry, I'm like typing at the same time, but you're trying to look at potential threads. So here's there for 3 years, 2014 to 2017, and again, elite Hall of Fame players, multiple Hall of Famers on this power play. But just looking at this, let me share this. This is Tocchet's first year in Pittsburgh. Crazy net front.
Yeah,
that's fucking Malkin. That's I think Patrick Hornquist on this team.
Yeah, I think it was
like Horny. So again, and the more interesting thing I saw in just like a very brief when I just looked through these 3 seasons, it's more so where they're not shooting from compared to league average. So look at this. Keep that in your mind. 15-16. Oh, fuck. I didn't switch it. 15-16. Net front again. Heavy on the slot. Basically a big ass blob in high danger.
They had less in the high slot than I thought in the one prior, but that also is just kind of because I think they're outside, like they're on either side of that specific spot. So
So then 16-17. Look at that.
Yeah.
Like no point shots whatsoever. Again,
and Letang's a righty. No, Letang's a righty too, so I think he's fading more to the left side. Yeah, to the left side there to set up the one timer. Yes. He's not shooting from that side at all, from his strong side at all.
No. Like and that was a common thing through all 3 seasons. So I think Tochet's it's more like honestly my whole thing about it, like that I'm thinking about more is like I think Tocchet's gonna have a bigger effect on the power play than anyone. Like again, the Canucks power play was different, but he had Quinn Hughes. So like, and again, I think if you basically take the levels of I'm gonna sound insane with this.
Hit me.
It was just like super galaxy brain shit. If you take the levels of talent disparity on the Penguins power play, so you have elite forwards, the Tang, fine. I don't think he's like a crazy dangerous on the power play.
Sure,
it's questionable.
Yeah, I think some people would agree with you very aggressively. I'm not I hate Chris Letang.
So if you take that disparity, I think that is similar to the Flyers, but obviously at a major step below. Like the disparity between your trust in your blue liner quarterback on the power play compared to how good your forwards should be on the power play, like a connecting Michkov, Couturier at creating open space. Brink was even decent. Like you would have trust in your forwards compared to zero trust in your quarterback on your point. So I think that we should be looking at the Pittsburgh like strategy more than the Vancouver, because obviously Vancouver had Quinn Hughes. So you're not going to be not using Quinn Hughes. Like Pittsburgh obviously didn't use Chris Letang as an offensive threat.
As an like he's not the conduit. No,
he's not the center point.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
I'm galaxy braining this.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I also don't. If Tocchet hires a power play coach, and that is what he's the power play guy, I would imagine that while he obviously has some, I think he'd have more say. And again, this is totally just out of nowhere. I don't know this for certain, but he'd have more say on personnel rather than the structure itself, maybe.
Yeah, true.
But it's interesting. It is going to probably be forward heavy, I would assume, on the Flyers, because they do have the wingers that you want to get out there, and hopefully, if it was an ideal situation, they'd actually score on the power play. And they have the skill sets to be able to. Yeah, that's hard for me to really.
I don't know how much we could take away from this. It's June 6th.
The problem.
This is June 6th ass conversation.
This is June ass. The NBA finals are on. The NHL, the Stanley Cup
game
finals
was crazy
are
last
on.
night. Yeah,
that was a great. I shouldn't have just went on the internet. I don't know. I go on the internet. I watch the whole last 3 quarters, and I'm just like, wow, that's probably one of the best NBA finals games I've ever seen in my life. Following one of the best Stanley Cup final games that I've seen in quite a while. And I go on the internet and it's like, man, Tyrese Halliburton, y'all getting all up in arms. He scored 14 points. It's like, did you see the 2 at the end? That's the point. I don't care that he scored 14 points. Everyone in the Pacers scores 14. Anyways, whatever.
I still have to watch.
They're kind of like the Flyers. The Flyers should build the team like the Pacers. Yeah.
That's a blog. If Indiana wins, the NBA
even OKC also has 15 rotation players. So
OKC took advantage of LA. Getting SGA like the Flyers took advantage of the entire league hating Russia to get Michkov. Genius.
Yeah, I'm
Brain
not writing
genius.
that. I'm not writing that. Someone else can take that one in the Slack.
It's always the standard of like what the Flyers can learn from the Stanley Cup Finals. Takeaways from get good players. Yeah, I'm a real smart guy.
Yep. You nailed it. You got it. And that's also what I was just going to bring up briefly is like going back to the Canucks, circling all the way back around. I did put in my article today that came out about some free agents that the Flyers should look at that maybe Tocchet would be interested in bringing in for his first year. I did bring up Brock Besser and Pius. I can never say his name. Pius.
Is it Pius?
I think it's Pius. I think it's Pius. I think it's Pius. It's Pius Suter. That's what it is. It's Pius Suter. It is. It's Pius. Anyway, so Suter and Besser, who are both
I think
Canucks.
Suter's a lock, honestly, too.
Yeah.
Tocchet fucking like
I
think
think he's like a really good low risk guy.
I listen to a lot of Canucks podcasts, like too much for writing for a Flyers blog, but just because I like the people that are on it.
Yeah.
And I'm saying by so much by two separate.
That
Canucks
is way
podcasts.
too many.
That's too many.
That's too many for a Canucks fan, I think.
Yeah. So but they have both expressed so often of like throughout the season of how much Tocchet loves Suter. So it's like it's I think that's an instant just like he's your 3C. He's your 4C. He's your 2C. Like I think he's your 1C. No, I'm just kidding.
I think he could be a middle six center. And then you can bump him to the wing if you really need to. And at that point, you'd probably
this is a separate conversation for a separate thumbnail.
Yeah, that's true. But briefly, I'll wrap it up. So Besser and Suter, I was thinking like, would that be more? I guess likely, due to the fact that Besser in particular, I would say, because Suter didn't really play that much, but Besser in particular, would that make a Besser signing more likely, due to the fact that it could give Tocchet more of a security blanket around the power play of someone that he had before. It's not as if Brock Besser has been amazing recently, or really that good at all. But even if it's like a 0% to a 10%, I feel like it does increase that likelihood now that Tocchet's here of Brock Besser coming to Philly. I think there was a time I think Brock Besser that was a very Flyer-esque player. Not too long ago.
Yeah, I could see Besser potentially happen if there's a situation where he has suddenly priced himself out for some reason. Like I could see NHL GMs just not liking his profile.
Yeah,
like, at all.
No, I that's what I'm
and
thinking.
Then it's like, and then it's August 15th. And then it's like suddenly you're like, where's Besser going to sign? It's all everyone's talking about because that's the only thing to talk about.
I think there's a very good chance that he ends up closer to like 5.5, 6 million than people think. And
for like 2 years, I would do that in a heartbeat for the Flyers. But it's like if you could do a bet on yourself deal for Besser, and if he could score 35-40 again, then he could go somewhere else. But I could see him doing like a Taylor Hall thing.
Yeah, and basically. I think now there's a chance it devolves into a situation where it's kind of like you're doing the Tavares short-term contract, but you're doing it as a prove-it deal for Besser, basically. Yeah.
But
almost probably a bit cheaper, honestly.
Would you do Besser over Suter or Suter over Besser?
I would take Suter personally. I like Suter for longer term.
So if you do say Suter is 4 by 5.5, because I think he's getting a major pay raise. I think Suter's getting 5+.
He just paid Cates 4 by 4.
So if you get 5 by 5,
he's a UFA. Yeah, he's a UFA, so he's going to get more money.
So say if it's Suter 5 by 5, or would you do Besser 2 for 6.5?
They're both enticing. Honestly, It is a long time,
but it's also like he's your 3C. How old is
Suter? Suter's not that old. Suter's 28? He's 29. He's 29. I think did he just turn 29? Yeah, so he just turned 29. Now, I don't think I would love to get Suter for that length of time personally. I'm not against it necessarily, but that would be long. I think he really only broke 40 points. He only broke 40 points last year.
He's a better shooting threat than every center that they have.
He is. But that's,
Sorry,
again,
I'm
not saying
interrupting
much. It's not saying much.
No, exactly.
Because Coots can't shoot at all.
Yeah.
His arms don't work.
Cates
and
can
Noah
shoot
Cates
by like jamming.
Cates is a very poke. Yeah. Which he's effective at. He's good at that. It's just, it's not really a shot. It's more of a pitchfork. So he's the first time he got over 25, he got over 20 goals. Like for the first 4 years of his career, I think I wrote about this in the article as well, is 14, 14, 15, 14 in terms of goal totals. That's not anything that's very enticing to me. He did turn it up last year, but I think he also was basically the de facto number one center at the end of the season.
Yeah, he was.
Because there was nobody left, and that team was a complete mess of like biblical proportions. He doesn't really excite me. I don't hate him. I think he's a good hockey player. But like you're telling me 5.5 over 4 years or 5.5 over 5 years. I mean, that's oof. Especially when you got Cates on a 4x4 right now. And I think you're going to bring in Luchenko, whether or not he ends up being a middle six, top six, or bottom six guy. He's going to play, I think, for quite a while. And Coots is going to be there. I don't know if it really raises your ceiling at all. I think it might just take up more space. It might just be another body in an elevator, basically. It's just getting more crowded. Besser, I see a bit more of a peak, a potential like elite season. But again, I like that more. I think I'd go with that. I think I'd do that just for the 2 years or the 3 years, and just sort of see if he can find a form in year one, and then maybe even then, if you're in year one, you can flip him, right? And somebody will overpay for Brock Besser. He'll be on a pretty decent contract, and if he's on pace for 45 or 35, and people are kind of looking and seeing that sort of motivated Besser of like 2022, I think that they'd be very interested in trading him. It would kind of be like a Kuzmenko sort of deal. I mean, nobody thought Kuzmenko was going to turn it on with the Kings like that, but it's a sort of like push for the playoffs move, and then you can keep him for an extra year after that, and then that team would make a decision if they had to re-sign him. Again, that's a lot of work, and again, there is a chance the Flyers would just keep him for the whole contract, and then we would see what happens after that, because if he had another 2 years where he scored a mid-20s in the goal total and put up 45, 50 points, 55 points. I think at that point, then his value would be pretty severely chopped in half to the point where the Flyers could keep him at a lower rate if they felt like it. So I think there's a bit lower risk it's not like it's a huge risk with the Suter deal either, but what the short-term deal that you're envisioning with Besser, I think gives you a bit of flexibility. I think you can also like move that contract a bit easier in this like day and age. What if like Utah with the Mammoth turn it on randomly and they have a ton of young guys doing really well and not much committed cap. They have a lot of cap space. Maybe they take a Brock Besser and say, well, here's more supplement our scoring that we already have, more of that, and we don't have to worry about the contract until after next year, and we already have so much cap surplus hanging around that it makes sense. So we're getting too deep into the weeds in this topic now, because that's what I was writing about before.
This could be a whole separate thing of a potential like Suter reunion with Tocchet, but
that'll come soon.
Yeah, exactly. I think we covered enough about the power play. It sucks that the end thing is basically like we don't know, because of course the end thing of a lot of the coaching stuff is we don't know yet.
Yeah, I think it's good. At least you can pinpoint why you wouldn't know. It's not as if you don't understand what he's going to try and do. Yeah. It's just kind of like, you don't have Quinn Hughes, man. It's tough.
Yeah,
like he's one of one. He's maybe 2 of 2 with Makar, but
literally,
he's either 1 of 1 or 2 of 2, right? He's got a certain requisite level of skill that nobody else does, and those types of guys are almost like point guards. You can kind of just let them cook up top, and they'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's tough, but I think we figured out kind of the sorts of things they'll try and do with the power play.
Yeah, things that they could do, and then personnel they could probably potentially target to change that. Then, if they get a net front guy, like if someone somewhere turns into more of a net front guy, like a Forrester or anything, or Cates becomes more of a net front guy, then yeah, and that's why you trade for Marco Rossi, because he's that guy. But anyways,
he's too small. He can't get in front of the net. He'll end up in the 5th row.
He's got
Eric Goodbranson will clear him out.
Yeah, all that shit.
Not when Zach Bogosian's in front of the net, buddy.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for joining us. I hope the likes are over 10. We get there 15, 20.
Yeah, I get
I'm begging for scraps here. Like and subscribe. We're doing, with probably us two, are doing more prospect stuff. I did a watch along of Brady Martin the other day. I have a Parton Mortone one that I'm clipping. Roger McQueen might be soon, just because
come back in the news
is with the combine.
Your nightmares, like, your nightmare is unfolding in front of your eyes.
Yeah, your
nightmare is unfolding in front of your eyes. The elite prospects rankings were right all along.
Yeah, that stuff.
They know ball.
Yeah. So more prospect stuff to stay tuned with throughout the whole summer. Like even after the draft, that we'll be looking over the prospects that they actually draft and getting people to talk about them. It's gonna be a real fun time. So you might want to subscribe.
Yeah, I'm gonna have an article and maybe another piece of video content about some of the more expensive wingers that have come available in the market, whether it be free agency or whether it be through a trade. So I'm going to do some more stuff on that. See if it even makes sense to spend more money, to splurge on somebody who isn't a center or play in the center of the ice, or is capable of playing in the center of the ice. See if that even makes sense. So that'll be coming out soon on the website, and then subsequently I would do it on here at some point once I figure out how to host and my microphone. I'm this close to a really good setup. It's like right here. I tried to figure it out, but we'll get there. And
we'll get there. All good.
Keep watch the space. It's gonna be popping off. Popping off.
Watch this space.
Watch this space. Notifications. Etc. Thank you. I appreciate all of you very much.
Yeah, I couldn't end it better than myself. Perfect. BSH forever. Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys.